Today we're at Perla Condominiums reviewing a BDA Systems Company recent installation we're actually still in the middle of, to go over what's been going well, what are some of the things that we looked out for early to make sure that this project is going to be a success, and going to detail all the individual nuances that we saw leading up to this project to make sure that it was as easy as possible for us and as seamless as possible for the building management.
Loud and clear.
So this building is unique in that it's being serviced by two separate radio networks. Fire and police are not talking on the same network like you would find throughout the rest of the state or even the rest of the country. Miami-Dade Fire Rescue talks on the UHF band, which is 450 megahertz, and that comes with its own unique challenges. Sunny Isles Police is talking on 800 megahertz, which is a little bit easier to deal with, but it has its own unique approach. This building is going to have, when it's all said and done, 2 BDAs and 2 donor antennas. How they have to come together in a cost-efficient way and how they're going to be working to seamlessly communicate first responders from the inside to the outside. It all comes down to preparation prior to the installation, design, and also how we commission the system and make sure that it's tuned perfectly at final inspection. So given that this building is unique with the 2 different radio bands that we have to contend with, we have to take 2 separate RF surveys. When it comes to talking with the AHJs and how they want us to install radio systems that are essentially extensions of their radio outdoor network inside this building, the first step is the RF survey. It tells us, 1, if we even need a system, and 2, what areas of the building we need to provide coverage from our DAS, a distributed antenna system. Ryan Garcia is our project manager on this project. He's been here since the beginning, and we want to get his input as to what steps he took at the beginning, during, and what he expects to do at the end of the project, as we are still in the middle of this and we are seeing success on the horizon, and we want to make sure that we get there. Ryan, what was the first step that was taken to make sure that this system was cost efficient and acceptable by AHJ standards?
So the first step was to coordinate with the AHJ to bring them in and to perform their radio DAC testing, for them to inevitably give us the official green light to proceed with designing a system that would meet sufficient coverage around the entire building. Once they came in and performed their DAC testing and gave us the green light to proceed, we came in with our own PCTEL scanners and performed a baseline survey on both the UHF band and the 800 band. The equipment we use to perform the baseline survey and the personnel we have conducting it is not to be overlooked, as it inevitably dictates the design that we will implement in this building to make sure that we have sufficient coverage throughout. In addition to coordinating with the AHJ, we have to coordinate with the property management in a situation like this, a condo building where, there's obviously tenants and restricted areas. So thankful to the management company here at La Perla Condos for coordinating with us and being extremely helpful, providing access to areas that, maybe the loading dock, maintenance service elevators.
And what's unique about Miami-Dade Fire Rescue, they're the ones that manage the radio network for the firemen and the EMS teams. They do what's called a pre-acceptance test. So that DAC test we talked about, that's essentially a "can you hear me now" test. They don't walk the entire building and validate that the entire floor 11 versus 15 need coverage and where. They just basically come in and say, yes, this building needs to invest in a radio system for our first responders. And that's there to really protect the HOA and building owners and developers from bad actors, from selling something that's not needed. Unfortunately, RF is kind of this thing you can't touch or you can't really see unless you have specialized equipment or the radios. And that pre-acceptance test is really the initial green light, thumbs up that says, all right, go out and find a contractor to do a baseline survey. And as you mentioned, we use a PCTEL scanner. That's an excellent device. It's a spectrum analyzer that measures the radio signal strength throughout the building in a systematic grid test that we perform. And it tells us which areas of the building need coverage from our internal installation DAS, with distributed antenna system. So based on that survey, we're able to determine what the true material costs, which then dictate how much labor we have to put into the system. Going into the design phase, using the RF survey, where we've already determined areas that need coverage from our amplified system, what are some of the precautions that you take with the building management in terms of running cables, getting access to certain pathways, or what's the most, ultimately, the less material we have, the cheaper the system is going to be, the better the system will perform. And we want to eliminate unnecessary cable runs. Sometimes that means having to cut holes in drywall, sheetrock, cutting holes in concrete, stairwells, and stuff like that. What are some of the things that were important in the beginning prior to design when you did a walkthrough that you can then relay back to your engineering team based on what you saw in the field?
I think most importantly would probably be the location of the head-end units, both BDA systems, and where they would be installed. Given that this is a 42-story building, to kind of minimize the relay from the donor antenna to the actual BDA systems, we found a mechanical room on the roof on the top floor that met all the requirements for our systems to be installed. And we take that information kind of back to our design team, and that way they can branch out from there how our signal will be distributed throughout.
Yeah, so requirements on the head-end location, which happened to be the mechanical room in this project. It was ideal being close to the donor antenna, so that eliminated a lot of signal loss from the inbound signal. Other requirements in that room, 2-hour rating, mechanical ventilation, there has to be a sprinkler in there, a fire alarm connection has to be available. So a lot of input from both the building, other vendors like the fire alarm contractor, the building needs a sprinkler head or it needs to maintain a certain temperature. All of that has to be factored into consideration. That head-end room is really where everything should start, right? That's the first thing to pinpoint. From there, we have to essentially go down to the rest of the building. What are some of the pathways that we took to get there?
The main pathway we took from the BDA system is in the stairwell, where we have cores throughout all 42 floors, and then we will punch out into the corridors to mount antennas and distribute the coverage. We also branched out from that stairwell into the parking garage on all the floors.
Are we ever going to be going into tenant spaces?
No.
Yeah. In my entire career, we've always avoided going inside the actual tenant spaces. We're able to get enough signal from the interior corridors. So once we enter the corridors, some of the important things to worry about are patchwork and access panels. The equipment that we install has to be serviced later in the future, potentially. Other scopes or some other contracting work could potentially damage our work, so we need to be able to access our equipment and repair. When it comes to patchwork and stuff like that, what are some of the things that you've seen to help eliminate or reduce the amount of patchwork we have to do? What are some of the key takeaways you can give in terms of reducing the amount of headache?
Well, luckily in a building like this, that's obviously a retrofit, there were some existing access panels in the corridors that we were able to use initially to be able to run our cable and access our junction boxes. Essentially, the coordination with the property management in the front end is very important. We obviously try to work with each other and how they would like to facilitate their patchwork, what their preferences are, what's best for us. It's just a lot of teamwork.
Yeah. I mean, for us, the BDA Systems Company takes a lot of pride in being flexible. You have to be flexible in these systems. We are not rigid. We can overcome a lot of obstacles with different antenna types, routing of cabling. We always try to use existing access panels, existing pathways as much as possible to eliminate the amount of extra cost and repairs that need to be made. So that's an important step. So when we actually get the installation done and we have our antennas broadcasting signal for police and fire inside the building, the only visible thing you can see is really our antennas that are in the hallways, or if you happen to walk into a stairwell, you'll see it. What can you inspect in terms of aesthetics? What do they look like in the hallways?
A lot of people don't even notice them, and they tend to blend in with already existing fixtures on the ceiling, like a smoke detector, light.
They kind of look like Wi-Fi access devices. Right. So when it comes to the final stages of this project installation, we have to get it certified by the local ASJs. And that, since we have two separate ASJs, what can we expect in Dade County in terms of a final inspection process? Is this a one and done, show me it works and you're out? Or what can we expect?
Prior to even coordinating with them, we would actually come back in and run another survey ourselves with those PCTEL scanners to ensure that, this is after commissioning both devices, to ensure that the building does have sufficient coverage throughout, and we go from that failing survey that we had in the beginning stages to all green passing survey before bringing in the inspectors. That usually sets us up for successful inspections. But yes, the process here would be coordinating with multiple fire inspections. They would come in with their radios, they would come in for the fire alarm testing, because we do inevitably have to tie in with the fire alarm control panel. We would have to pass our electrical inspections, our cable routing, and our system installation.
And also the commissioning part you mentioned, that's probably where we're gonna get hung up the most. Coordinating with the AHJ in terms of how much signal we're bringing into the building and how much we're transmitting out of the building. Because we don't want to cause any damage or raise the noise floor, not to get too technical, but it's essentially we don't want to scream too loud back at the tower from the main dispatch center, right? We want to play well with the rest of the other BDAs in the area, and also all the portable radios, all the walkie-talkies around the jurisdiction. And if our BDA is not tuned correctly, we can drown out other people who need to communicate. And in an event of emergency where you have multiple people talking, that's where things can go bad. So the most often underlooked or underappreciated part of this entire installation is actually tuning that BDA to communicate well and not overpower the bigger network that the jurisdiction has. That signal has to hit just right. So that commissioning part where the multiple radio tests, that could be where it could be multiple visits from the AHJ as we tune and make adjustments and improve on the performance of our system and how it works symbiotically with their network. So these systems have to be maintained consistently. They're a life safety system. They have to be running 24/7. Just like a fire alarm, this system has to be tested annually with another RF survey and has to have somebody on call ready to react. Dade County has a 4-hour requirement that we have to be here to resolve any issues to make this system continue to work. So when we're testing at the final inspection, is that exactly what we can expect at the annual recertification?
Yes, at the annual inspections, we test everything basically from the beginning. We'll do another RF survey. We'll check to see. I mean, especially in buildings like this where it's a little bit older and they're undergoing other renovations. We want to make sure other contractors or other trades didn't affect our cabling pathways or any cut wires, anything like that. Test the batteries, we'll test the fire alarm points, check for any physical damage to the systems or any of our infrastructure throughout.
And record that on record so that the next year we can look for changes.
Right.
Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you have any questions, comments, or concerns, feel free to reach us at info@bdasystemsco.com. Give us a call, look us up. We're happy to help with any installation or questions or issues that your AHJs may be bringing you regarding your BDA system and RF coverage inside your building. Thanks.